Hey, it's Herb Stevens again, the skiing weatherman, for my first installment of Weather Weenies for the year 2010. Today we're at Windham Mountain in the Catskills, and in addition to some wonderful skiing and riding here at Windham, there's something you got to check out. Go to their website, and if I knew it, I'd just recite it, but it's got to be just Google Windham Mountain and check out a Zorb, Z-O-R-B. If you can imagine crawling inside an inflated ball that's about 8 feet in diameter and rolling down a hill inside that ball, that is zorbing. And they do that here at Windham Mountain in the wintertime. Check that out. But now it's time to talk about some weather. And for the last several weeks, we have had a rather repetitious pattern with a big upper level ridge in the west and a big trough in the east. And we've seen things like snow in Houston. We've had freezes in Florida. We had a blizzard up and down the East Coast, all because of this rather persistent trough. And guess what, guys? It's not going anywhere for a while. So in the west, you'll see some snow in the mountain ranges, the Cascades, and the northern Sierras as little troughs try to come ashore. But when they run into this ridge, they just get the stuffing knocked out of them, and it really reduces their ability to bring the moisture into the ranges of Idaho and Wyoming and down into the central Rockies. Southern branch of the jet stream, I've been saying for several weeks now, is going to be enhanced from time to time by the El Nino, and that will be the case. But right now, things are kind of quiet in the southern branch, so there hasn't been a lot of new snow of late down in the southern Sierra or in the Sangre de Cristos in the southern Rockies. But I think that's going to change next week. But shorter term, the real weather maker here isn't even on the map yet. I think we're going to see late this week. Now, this is being taped on, what day is it, David? Monday? Monday. It's the 4th of January. We are going to see some shortwave low pressure energy kind of crest the top of the ridge and come down through the western Great Lakes later in the week. Now, remember, this is all Arctic air. Typically, when a storm takes shape in the eastern part of the country, it's along what's known as the polar boundary, and usually it resides somewhere from, I don't know, from Cape Hatteras up to about Cape May, New Jersey, and it's kind of chilly in the wintertime, cool down here, and then cold up here. But when Arctic air dominates, man, it is cold all the way down into Florida. So typically, storms like to fight off or to live off of the thermal boundary that these different air masses will give you. Well, this time we're talking about the difference between very cold and cold. And while it doesn't seem like a storm will form, there's still a lot of upper level support for this storm. So as this shortwave energy crests the ridge and comes down through the southern lakes later in the week, snow is going to break out north of the trek, and it's going to have a very high snow to water ratio. Typically, we're looking at 10-to-1 for most snowfall. If it's really wet snow, it gets down to 8, 7-to-1. If it's Utah or Tug Hill Plateau, New York powder, very often you get ratios of 20 to 25-to-1. That's the angel dust that we really dream about skiing and riding through. The snow associated with this storm as it goes through the Great Lakes and into the Ohio Valley is going to have very low water content, a big snow to water ratio. There's going to be powder skiing in the lower Great Lakes and in western New York and through western Pennsylvania into the mountains of West Virginia. There'll be snow falling further south down into the Smokies of North Carolina as well. Not quite as much to the south of this track because this cold air, and remember, it's cool down here and really cold to the north, can't hold as much moisture. So it's a little harder to crank out the snow south of the storm track when you have one of these Arctic waves. As this thing approaches the coast, and it'll happen again somewhere between Cape May and Cape Hatteras, probably closer to Cape May along about Friday, the storm is really going to deepen because there'll be enough heat injected into the system from the ocean. It's still going to have very vigorous upper level support. And I think from about DC up to Boston, there'll be a pretty good snow event late this week to close out the week. 4 to 8 inches of really fluffy snow. And that snow is going to fly in the mountains of New England, New York, down into Pennsylvania. And I think what we're looking at for the upcoming weekend is a lot of powder and packed powder snow from the Smokies all the way up into the Laurentians and into the mountains like Mont Saint Anne around Quebec City. Out west, as this thing dives down and gets out of the way, high pressure is going to move in behind it. And believe it or not, sometimes high pressure can mean snow. This Arctic high will come down to the east of the Rocky Mountains. And these are the Rockies right here. And with a clockwise flow around that high, as it moves southeast, you'll have a what's known as an upslope flow developing east of the Continental Divide. There'll be just enough moisture in this air. It's going to be very cold air, this Arctic air, and it's going to crank out light to moderate amounts of snow from the crest of the Continental Divide to the east. The resorts to the west are going to be out of luck with this one, but you will see some light snow to moderate snow from Big Sky in Montana down through Jackson Hole and on into the Front Range of Colorado the middle of this week. And then all the action shifts into the east. Once this storm goes out to sea, I will tell you this, and in the snow industry, they don't like you to say it could ever be too cold to ski, because with all this technical gear, it really isn't. But you'll need an extra layer if you're skiing or riding in the Northeast or in the Great Lakes this weekend, because there's some very cold Arctic air coming in behind that system. Now, further down the road, next week, I think we're going to see a little shot of energy in the southern branch, so the southern Rockies could be in for some snow the week of the 11th. Meanwhile, this cold air is going to dominate east of the Mississippi, actually east of the Rockies, until further notice. There is no major change to this pattern in sight. So if you are skiing in the eastern half of the country, put that extra layer on, enjoy the beautiful snow. Out west, it might not be powder time, but you'll have a lot of bluebird skies and some light snow, light to moderate snow east of the divide, so there'll be some powder around later this week. All in all, from coast to coast, situation's pretty good. And if you have an excuse for not getting out to ski or ride, forget about it. Get off your couch, go out and enjoy the snow. This is Herb Stevens. For all you weather weenies, we'll be reporting to you next week from Killington, Vermont. See you then.